What is up, Las Vegas? We're back with the Guest List podcast. My name is Jake Gallen, and I'm your host. And I am so freaking excited for this, guys. You have no idea. I'm honored and privileged to have a man of the status on the show. Somebody who I've been following for a long time. He is the CEO of the Plaza Hotel and actually a podcast host as well. Quite a unique combination. He's been the CEO of the Plaza Hotel since 2014, and recently he was selected to the Las Vegas Sun's 40 under 40 list. So, man of graciousness and power. Without further ado, Mr. Jonathan Jossel.
Thank you very much, Jake. Thank you for the kind introduction. That's nice of you. I don't know what I'm more proud of, the podcast or the casino, but I appreciate that introduction.
You have to be the only person in the entire United States that's running a hotel, casino, and a podcast as well.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of running a podcast doesn't really strike me as much because to me, it's just having conversations either with people on our team or people that we do business with or interact with. So it's instead of having a lunch meeting, you just have a podcast meeting and you sit down, you chat. And I've enjoyed it. It's given me a chance to get to know some of my colleagues and different people that I've worked with a lot better and get to hear their backstories and things that happen. So we're committed to it now, and it is unusual for a hotel and casino to sort of do that in a sense that it's more transparent maybe, or you're talking about things you wouldn't necessarily do. But we have our competitors on and we talk about things together, and that's sort of the way downtown has come together in many ways, is by competitors working together and making the area better as opposed to sort of not working together.
There's two things in that answer that you just said. And the first thing is that when you're doing long form podcasting, usually about once you hit that like 30 or 40 minute mark, even if this is the first time you've met someone, you feel like you've known them for months to years. It's such a strange social connection where all you're doing is literally just putting a microphone and recording it in the middle of you. But people tend to divulge a lot of their emotions and their feelings and kind of like their ideals along that path. So it's really cool that you were doing that. And also to build on that, something that's really fascinating, or that I'm really fascinated with you, is kind of your like hands-on, high visibility approach to being a CEO. You're kind of like breaking that traditional CEO type model where instead of staying in the background and running things, you're up in the forefront and you're trying to communicate with all of your followers, all of your customers, your clients, and always trying to find innovative things. So my question to you is, why did you, or what caused you to take this hands-on high visibility approach, and how has it worked out for you so far?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it, and I hope this thing can grow for you into something even bigger. For me, the idea of being hands-on is not something that I think of as a literal, oh, today I'm going to be hands-on. To me, it's come out of the fact that I moved out here in 2007. I was 23 years old. I didn't know anything about the industry. I knew a little bit. I'd studied gaming and I'd studied casinos, but I really didn't know a lot about Las Vegas and the general operations of these businesses. And what allowed me to grow and become successful, or maybe to do my 10,000 hours, so to speak, was the idea that I'm going to be here in my spare time, not when I'm working, but in my spare time. I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to have breakfast here. I'm going to have coffee here. I'm going to have lunch here. I'm going to have dinner here. I'm going to hang out here at night, listen to the music, and meet people. And that's what allowed me to learn about the plaza, about downtown, and about the industry in general, was that hands-on approach by talking to, there's people that have worked at this property for longer than I've been alive. And at least I could say that a few years ago. I'm getting a little older now. But at the time, when I was in my late 20s, that was definitely the case. There were people that had been here since opening night in 1971. And I was getting to hear from them what made the plaza successful. And then at the same time, they would introduce me to customers that had been coming here for 10, 15, 20 years. And they would say, gee, this is how it used to be, or this is what we miss, or this is what we need. And by being there and by being present with them, it gave me the opportunity to learn what I thought would then ultimately be the path to hopefully take the plaza forward when I got my gaming license in 2014. So that was really the idea. Is not a question of, well, I'm going to be hands-on to it. It's that I actually enjoy doing it. I enjoy sitting in Oscar's, having a martini, talking to the team, talking to the servers or guests, the bar. I just enjoy the business. So to me, it isn't really a question of work or being hands-on. It's just, this is what I like to do. And it actually turns out that it helps understand the business better.
Yeah, that high visibility, or just your personality in general, has been very beneficial to the Plaza. Something that I've echoed a lot through my podcast is that the CEOs and the leaders of businesses, their personality is almost a direct reflection of how people portray their business as well, just because social media has put a brand on everybody. And that's where you see, like, down the road, where when people hate a CEO, they tend to hate the product, even though that they use it. So the fact that people like you and see you all the time, it brings people to the Plaza. And actually, the last hotel that I stayed at downtown a few months ago was actually the Plaza.
Oh, good. How was your stay?
I loved it.
You better say something good now on a podcast.
No, I liked that you guys had a gym, because I had no idea. I've never seen like that well put together of a gym inside of a hotel before.
Yeah, we're very proud of the gym. It really came out nicely, and we think it's it's definitely the nicest gym downtown. It's really a question of whether it's one of the nicer gyms in the whole city, and it's run by our partners, Real Results, who have another gym in downtown. Mm-hmm. Did you get to try out one of our new Lux rooms?
I think it was a deluxe room. It was actually paid for by somebody else before I moved into where I am downtown, but it was a bigger room.
The Lux suites are all brand new style of rooms. They're in the North Tower on four floors. Not deluxe, but Lux. Lux is the type of room type that we just renovated last year, and we did 150 brand new rooms that we're really proud of. So if you didn't get to stay in one of those, next time you come back, we'll make sure you check it out, because it's pretty cool.
I would love that. And going back onto the conversation we were before prior, where how you were a young CEO and you came into the CEO-ship. I know I did a little bit of a backstory, but I want to save time. That you came in here with a real estate group, and then that kind of transpired into getting your licensee. Did you have any mentors on the Strip, or anyone that helped you fulfill that role to become the person that you are today?
Yeah. So I had, in my time as with the real estate company, when I came out here, they had different people running the Plaza. And for good or for bad, I got to experience their styles of management across the board, along the way, I should say. And there was a few of them that, I got to see them running the Plaza specifically. And at the time, we also owned the Las Vegas Club, which today is going to become Circa. We also owned the Western downtown, further east. So I saw them running different style of properties as well. And then one gentleman came, his name was Tony Santa, and he was running the Plaza at the time. And he was here probably for 4 years. And I'd say he was the one he had run the Flamingo, he had run the Paris Hotel on the Strip. So he had really had a lot of experience with Caesars, and getting to work so closely with him was a great experience for me to learn a lot more about the industry. And he was sort of a mentor figure as well. And then I've been lucky enough through our chairman here, who owns the real estate, to meet a lot of his contacts, whether it's Sheldon Adelson, Steve Wynn, and having lunches or dinners with those guys has really given me great insight into the industry and their experiences. Especially while he was still in Las Vegas, Steve Wynn was an incredible guy to hear about really the focus he put on the customer experience. And it sounds cliche, but he was at a level that nobody can even comprehend in terms of smell, in terms of sight, in terms of sounds, the things you would hear in a restaurant, the clinking of the plates, every little detail that he would think about. Even in a bingo game, he would tell me that the importance of a caller and the way they say the number of the ball is so important. Like B7 sounds boring, but if they say it in a certain way, the customer spends longer in the game. I mean, it was crazy to hear it, but actually he's right on all of those things. And you saw those details in the places he was building and the extent that he thought that through. So not just spending time with him, but watching videos on him, reading books about him was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Pretty helpful.
The small details really do matter. That's something that I've learned over time as well. I tried to do 2 different businesses in Vegas before I ended up with the podcast. And just the way that you interview somebody, and this is something that you can resonate with as well, is you don't realize the skills that go into everything, just like everyday conversation, and how to turn them in different directions, how to emphasize on different words, how to slow it down, how to like enamor different feelings throughout it.
Oh, and to manage the flow is huge. I mean, I'm by no means a a podcast, or I just have a chat. But to hear guys who do it professionally, yourself included, but some of the people I listen to separately, the way they control the conversation and they remember the points they want to come back to, and the way they ask questions and keep the other person interesting is a huge skill. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's nuanced though. It doesn't just happen. You have to practice it
over time. Who are your favorite go-to podcasters to listen to?
Well, I guess Tim Ferriss. I think he's very good. It depends on his guests. I typically don't listen to most of his stuff unless I'm interested in the guest. Same as Joe Rogan. I don't listen to a lot of his stuff unless I'm interested in the guest specifically. I don't listen to like a lot of the comedy stuff. There's a few political things I listen to, but that's probably not for the podcast, for public stuff. And that would be those two, Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, would be the main two that I do.
Dude, those are.
I probably should listen to more and educate myself more on the line of questioning, but I'll get there.
It's all about just you live and you learn. That's Tim Ferriss is also one of my favorites, and Joe Rogan is somebody as well. They kind of they opened up. Tim Ferriss more specifically asks such interesting questions, and the way that he proposes it is how I try to replicate what he does. And Joe Rogan is just a very free speaker, and he kind of just opened that up to the world, that you can actually speak your mind without being blocked by some sort of facade.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. And I think Tim Ferriss is just a very smart guy. So the way he approaches it and the questions he asks, very good. Very, very good.
And staying along the lines of, we've been talking about just intricacies and specific details. I think you find yourself in an interesting position with the Plaza, right? You're in Old Vegas. The hotel's coming up on its 50th anniversary, I believe, next year. And you find yourself young and in the forefront. So you kind of are in this mix of a medium of like an older hotel, but you're trying to push innovation as well and bring new concepts to it. How important is it to keep some of the foundation of old Plaza and then transitioning it into kind of this new age hotel?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So a lot of people thought that we should knock the Plaza down back in 2010, 2011 when we did the big remodel of it. And I've sort of taken a different approach, which is let's just improve it bit by bit, because it's such a great building. It's so iconic looking. I mean, the movies that have been filmed here, the history of the lights, it really doesn't need to be imploded. It's got good bones. Right now, we're doing some things that are pretty impressive that you wouldn't notice necessarily to the naked eye. But for example, we're putting in all new elevators. The elevators aren't going to change where they are, but they're going to be brand new motors and all new equipment, which is a big undertaking, which continues to improve the property. I think the challenge is really finding those ways to make it constantly fresh for people when they come here without taking away the original experience. I think a lot of people, when they come to Vegas, they know what they're looking for, they know what they like, and when they come to a place every year, most people come to Vegas once a year. So you want to have a level of consistency as well. You don't want them to come back in every time something's different. Their favorite bar's gone or their favorite restaurant's gone. You can't keep changing things. You got to give things a chance to be successful. But we are thinking that the Plaza, with its existing bones and a good refresh of elevators and some infrastructure that we're doing, some new elements specifically on the food and beverage side would be very cool. And with what's happening downtown, some of the other hotel casinos, they're all great. They're all doing good they're all doing good upgrades. But I think we have the opportunity to do things that are a little more free-spirited, a little bit more interesting, and play off what they're doing in a different way, which is why we did the murals on the building. It's why we did the pickleball courts up at the pool. Little things that just make a difference. And what some of the ideas we have for new bars. And one of the biggest things when we turn 50 is, and it's not really well known, but I'll tell it to you and your listeners, is that the Greyhound bus station is leaving, which is a huge, huge deal for downtown, perhaps bigger than any other development, because with that bus station leaving, it'll really clear up Main Street and the whole area. And I think that gives us a huge blank canvas of real estate to develop that could become something really interesting one day.
Wow, that is huge. I know that's kind of plagued downtown for a little while. It's just the I guess you could say it's the not so certain clientele that kind of travels through the area. So I know that'll help clean it up a little bit. I also do have a question. Since you are on the corner of Main Street, do you find that as a disadvantage to the hotel since it isn't necessarily attached to the encompassing Fremont Street experience?
Do you believe in feng shui?
No, do you believe that not being attached to the Fremont Street experience is a disadvantage?
No, I heard your question. My
Oh.
question back to you is, do you believe in feng shui?
Not so much. Not so much.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
Like the layout and the energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask you that because everyone said when the zipline wall was built, it's going to kill our business. We're going to be hurt. It's going to be a problem. And a cocktail waitress that had worked here since the beginning came to me and said, Jonathan, I think this is the solution. I said, what are you talking about? She said, the feng shui is now correct. We needed that zipline wall. And ever since the zipline wall's been built, we've had year-over-year growth. So do I believe that? No. I think there's other factors at play. But it is an interesting concept. So, would it be better to be directly on Fremont Street if we had bars? Obviously, the foot traffic would be better. But I think we've never been on Fremont Street. It used to be vehicular, which would be very interesting to see that back in the day. I would love to have seen that in play. But obviously, that's never going to happen at this point. And, Fremont Street does a great job in bringing people downtown. It's a huge attraction, and we do our bit of playing off of that. So if you have to cross the street, so be it. But I think we figured out a way to make it work for us. No doubt from a head count and foot traffic visibility point perspective, it's better to be on the street. But look at the El Cortez; they do a great job as well. They're off the street, so I think there's definitely room for all of us to make it work, and we use it as to our advantage. I think, which is there's less of the noise and the craziness, and you come across the street, and hopefully you're still close enough though that you can go and enjoy it, and then come back to the plaza and enjoy yourself here as well. So it's worked for us. Okay, I'm excited as well for Circuit to open and then Greyhound to leave, because I think that really being on the corner of Main Street is something that wasn't necessarily celebrated for the longest time. But actually, once Circuit opens, once Greyhound leaves, and we own that 17 acres to the south of the plaza. Once we develop that, and there's a bridge to the residential buildings being built on Symphony Park, I think you're just going to see this become the center of downtown. I really do. And then once you think like that, it's going to be a good upturn for all of us.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in speaking it into existence. That's what you have to do. And also, if you're a man of your word, which is something like you've done your entire life, if you say it's going to happen, then eventually it will happen.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like being on the corner of Main Street. It's also, as we named our podcast, on the corner of Main Street. It's where we are. It's also the opening lyric of a great song by the Killers, on the corner of Main Street. So it has a great. I like it. I'm very happy with it.
It is a beautiful situation. I asked that question just because I know sometimes logistical disadvantages sometimes play a hard part in marketing, but if you're smart with your marketing and your ingenuity, then you always find different ways to circumvent it.
Well, let me ask you. You're a young guy. You've chosen to move to live in downtown. Why would you do that?
I love downtown.
Why did you do that?
I love it. I love the community that surrounds it. I love being able to walk around and not having to drive anywhere, and all of the weird, erroneous, like spontaneous events that happen around it that aren't traditional in a sense. Like you guys have pickleball out here. There's pop-up shops. There's businesses within businesses. There's residential houses that are within businesses. It's very unique in a sense, and that's something that I love. I've worked on the Strip for the last 10 years. I worked at Omnia Nightclub the last 5. So I've been kind of around the glamour and the glitz for a long time. And I like getting away from that. And downtown still has that sort of feel of old Vegas, but it's really where all the action is within the local community. And Vegas is such a small, big city that all the people you want to be connected with are generally surrounded this area.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Now, when you multiply that and you think of all the people that are going to be living down in Symphony Park, in the next 5 years. You think about the Arts District, you think about East Fremont, suddenly you're going to see a real downtown, not just for tourism, but for people that want to live down here, go to the Smith Center, go to the restaurants. And I think that that's what we're starting to see. And many of us that have been down here for 10, 12, 15 years envisioned back then, but we've had the recession of 2009, we've had COVID. So there's been a lot of hiccups along the way, but now it's really starting to happen. And I think that that's exactly right. People like yourself are saying, yeah, I want to be down there. It's interesting. It's different. It's a real city feel. And I love that about it. I think that that's exactly what we were all trying to do. When I moved here in 2007, people would say to me, you live downtown? What's wrong with you? Are you being harassed? Are you being molested? I mean, it was the weirdest answers. And I'd say, what are you talking about? I live in a great apartment. I was living in Soho Lofts at the time, built by the great Sam Cherry. And we loved it. And I would walk around the streets and listen, there's like any downtown in America, as I came to learn, there's you go to downtown San Diego, it's no different. You see some, characters, but that's a city. And I could walk to work and I could go to my local coffee shop and meet people. And that's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking to live in a gated community and drive a car to work every day. So it fits certain people, and that's what's happening down here. It's incredible.
Yeah, Vegas it's like I was saying, there's a lot of innovation, but there's so much creation that goes on. And it's something that I've kind of realized through this podcast and all the different entrepreneurs that I've met, and kind of just like a background as I interview people more so off the strip and more so off than on the strip, just because I've been born and raised out here. And I don't think the strip is a direct reflection of what the city has to offer and the people who actually make it and push it forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. So do you promote your podcast, or is it just through the guests you have that promote it? How do you really get into this?
Yeah, so I started it 5 months ago. It has about a little over 6,000 downloads at the time of this recording over 5 months. I put it up on YouTube. YouTube has about 3,000 downloads. It's been all social marketing as well. The guests help it. Right. This recording would be episode 53. So I've interviewed 53 different people, long form conversations. I've had Clark County Commissioner Michael Naft has been on it, Ken Bolke, Sinbin founder, a bunch of other different people. I'm sure you've learned this as being a CEO. You have to climb that social ladder in the beginning, and then people are like, oh, identify with you because you've had this person on, or oh, you're friends with this guy, especially in Vegas, where the trust and word of mouth kind of reign supreme in the beginning.
100%. Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, well, good for you, man. That's congratulations.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think Vegas deserves a long form conversational format where people can go and just speak on their ideas and beliefs that isn't kind of just chopped up into 15 to 30 second sound bits and 280 characters on Twitter.
Twitter's the worst. It's the worst and the best.
You're pretty active on Twitter, it seems like.
Yeah, well, Twitter now Twitter's a similar thing to hanging out at a bar and meeting your customers. You can just hang out on Twitter and talk to them, and they write to you, and you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. But for the business, it's great, I guess. But for the opinions of people you really don't care about, it's very frustrating. Especially when there's a presidential debate the night before, and that's all that your timeline's filled with is a bunch of nonsense. But the tool of the business side of it is fantastic, and the way it allows you to interact with people, especially today, when you can't have meetings with people and you can't shake hands and you can't high five and watch a sporting event together. It is great to get to talk to people that way.
It is. It does become an echo chamber at times, so it is tough in that they're all their own little battlefields. Instagram's kind of just more of just like the good. You only see the good of people. Facebook's literally a war zone. And
I deleted my Facebook in 2006.
Wow, you jumped on the train way before.
And I never reopened it.
Wow,
and I don't miss it.
You're smart. You're a smart man. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but since I just started this podcast, I try to promote myself in all different manners. But Twitter is by far my favorite baby. 2009, I've been on it since.
Nice.
And you get to voice your opinion easiest.
There's a lot of anger out there. Wow. It's crazy. I mean, sometimes like we did a thing the other night. We were doing a firework demonstration the other night, and just crazy people writing horrible things. It's just like, wow, it's amazing for no reason, but it's what happens.
It really is. Also, I want to touch on, you're talking about how COVID's kind of changed the game so far. We just saw yesterday at this time of recording, which is the 30th of September, they just expanded the capacity limit to 250. How does that assist you guys in operations going forward?
It sort of assists us. We can open our comedy club again. 200 people in the comedy club is good. I mean, obviously 400 is better, but it's a start. We can make it work at 200 people. So that's good. We can start hosting, like we can do a New Year's Eve party if we want to for 200 people, 250 people. We can do some smaller group meetings, some weddings, some other business meetings. Obviously, it doesn't really help the big stuff that we need to have to make the city work, and especially on the midweek stuff. But it's baby steps. The last, 7 months now has just been an incredible learning curve. You really do not get a business manual that teaches you how to deal with what we've been through here in terms of shutdowns, reopening procedures with masks and sanitation, living in this climate. There's no business guide. There's no Harvard MBA that can teach you this. This is truly, you learn by doing, because nobody knew. Nobody had been through this. And so I have a funny, not a memoir, I guess I just keep notes. And it's like, one day I was like, where is the business plan for this shit? Where it's like, you're gonna get shut down overnight. You're gonna have to deal with all your team members, get people out of the hotel. It's like, who prepared this business model? And of course, there is no business plan for this. It's completely insane that we will, not just us. I mean, not just me, the city, not just downtown, the whole state, the whole country, the whole world has been in this crazy conundrum. So to be able to be open is great. And, we had I did a podcast with the Smith Center yesterday, and Myron Martin, who, they're not going to reopen until they can truly fully reopen. So that's going to be who knows when that is, right? It could be a long time. But for us, we're open, even at a reduced capacity. It makes sense to be open. We think we've done it incredibly safely and taken all the precautions. I feel like in the beginning, back in June, maybe July, back in June, July, there was definitely a sense of some people aren't taking it as seriously as others, and it was a little unfair. But now everyone got on board pretty quickly. And listen, we roll with the punches. Okay, shutting down bars. Okay, open masks at the pool. All these things that just make it harder. We sort of adapt, we learn, and we do it. And I think we have a great team that's put in a lot of effort and hours to get us through this. And now we're starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Yesterday helps. I think you'll start to see more and more people coming. Obviously, it's going to be a long time until we get back to before this, because you need international travel. You need the big conventions. But as soon as that all starts happening, I think next summer you will see the Roaring 20s. The start of the Roaring 20s will be back. And let's see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hope I'm right.
I sure hope so. Just from what I've heard with the nightclubs, it looks like they're not going to open up until March, or maybe even after, because they're not going to open until, like you said, until they're able to open up completely, because it just doesn't make business sense.
Nightclubs probably are the one outlier that's just, at least the Smith Center, you're in your own seat. I mean, a nightclub, you're just basically on top of each other. It's pretty hard to imagine that. And even when they do reopen, how are people going to feel about that first engagement? The idea of going to a bar and just randomly meeting a girl like that guy or whatever, that whole first engagement is going to be so foreign to people at that point. It's going to be interesting to see those initial interactions. I'm curious to see it. But yeah, I don't see nightclubs until later on. But listen, it's happening now. I mean, some nightclubs have opened up as lounges, and they're finding a way to adapt. That's what we do as business. We just adapt.
It's funny you say that right when the pandemic started. I said, I can't wait to go back to work and see everyone try to hit on each other with masks on. It's going to be it's a different
exactly.
interaction. But as large events go, we saw this staple, kind of one of the staple events of downtown area, Life is Beautiful, announced that they're going to go forward with their event in September of next year. So it's kind of, even if it doesn't happen, I'd love it to happen. It's still like a morale booster to say like, hey, we're in here with you guys. We understand that everything's going on, but we're not just going to leave you guys on the dark, because we realize how important these small or large gatherings in the city are important to not just tourism and numbers, but the morale of the city.
Right. Yeah. And we've sponsored Life is Beautiful every year. So for us, it was a real blow. Our team love it. Every year we go there, we make pizza. It's sort of a fun thing. We all get behind the line. Some guys are doing cashiering, cooking, whatever, talking to customers. And it's just a great time. So we were really disappointed, but it was no surprise. I mean, everything got canceled. At this point, the surprise is if something happens. For us, actually, the one that I'm probably the most disappointed about was the NFR. The rodeo is something just so cool for the city. It really transforms the city for 10 days. And I think probably what frustrates me more than anything is not that it didn't happen. It's that it's happening just in Texas. And I'm saying, well, why is it happening in Texas, but it's not happening here? How does that make sense? It's the same country, the same virus, the same people. So logically, it's just a frustrating thing that it's able to happen, but not happen here. For us, it's such an important part of the city and what keeps December going. So listen, Life is Beautiful is amazing, NFR is amazing, but it's just a crazy year. So we have to adapt and move on and roll with the punches. It keeps coming.
Do you think some of these procedures that have been implemented since the COVID pandemic started are going to stay thereafter? Some things like the body temperature check, face masks, some of maybe the more background procedures. Do you think these will stay thereafter it kind of goes away or there's a vaccine?
I don't know about the temperature checks. I think some people I talk to actually really enjoy wearing masks. They think it's just a nice addition. I don't think that's going to last. I don't think that the temperature checks last. I think some reduced interactions might last. So, for example, like handshaking, is that necessary? A lot of spread of germs from handshaking, hugging. Some of that stuff might last at least, or take longer to come back. But I think humans are social beings. They're gonna want to get back to being social and interacting, and I don't see that. I do think some of the operational stuff might last. So reduced slot machines. I think operators are realizing that that's not as bad as it sounded. For us, one thing that's been really interesting is the logic goes that you want to open all your doors and get as many people in your building as you can. We only have 2 doors open to our building right now, and we do temperature checks and make sure everyone's wearing masks at those points. I've really enjoyed having reduced access points. I think it controls the clientele. I think it gives people a more secure feeling. And we haven't seen a decrease in foot traffic coming through those openings. So in a weird way, I feel that that's something that, again, from an operational standpoint, maybe the average person wouldn't recognize. But for us, it's been an interesting realization that you don't need to have 23 entrance points. You can have 3 or 4 and still be okay with that. So that's been an interesting thing that we might keep as we go forward.
Yeah, the pandemic kind of has wrung out a lot of those inadequacies in either social constructions or business models or different things of that nature. So I think it's something that, it's painful in the beginning, but over time you begin to wonder and to learn that there are actually a lot of benefits down the road in the longevity of businesses. And I do like also that there's been kind of an emphasis on mental health as well during this pandemic. Like you said, right. we're social creatures, and, being in quarantine for 8 weeks was tough. I was doing things I hadn't done in a long time. I was running around miles just because I needed to get out of the house. We started doing Zoom calls and FaceTimes and all these different technological advances to circumvent what was happening around us. I think the ingenuity of...
It would have been nice if it wasn't at the expense of people's businesses and family connections, right? If you could have kept people's businesses going and you could have kept family relations going, in terms of like, I can still go see my grandmother or my mother, whatever. If you could have kept those things going, I think probably society did need a reset, and give people a chance to take time away from their daily crazy grind and constant trying to keep up with what they had going on. I think it was an important reset. I just, at the expense of people's businesses and jobs and families, it's obviously not worth it. But I think it was an important thing that people needed to take that time to reset and find different things to keep them going and get out of that daily routine and habits. I think it's been beneficial. Listen, one thing that may definitely stick is this idea of Zoom and people working from home. I mean, I can see that sticking in many industries for sure.
Yeah, that's something that the tech companies are implementing thereafter. Up until I think I saw it till June of 2021, they're not even going to reconsider it. So it also kind of emphasizes Andrew Yang's importance of that technology's coming to take some jobs, and so you have to prepare for it.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. I think his tweet last night was probably the best one. Everyone that watched this debate deserves $1,000. Yeah. But he's right. Technology is coming, and we're going to have to adapt. And no doubt.
I'm just curious, what is your opinion on automation across the strip and cutting out positions? Like I saw they started happening with service bartenders and some of the kiosks. What is your opinion on that? And then if you could touch on what's Plaza's view on it as well.
It's a big mistake. The problem is that labor's gotten so expensive and running these buildings has gotten so expensive that these operators are trying to find ways to cut costs. And also, it's not just that labor's gotten expensive, but it's just cost of livings have gone up, but also generally revenues haven't sustained because there's a lot more competition across the country. So that's why they've started trying to find ways to cut costs. And I think it's a mistake, because what makes casinos work is the human interaction, the fun, the enjoyment of talking to somebody while you're having a drink at the bar, or playing video poker, getting to know your cocktail server, getting to know the security. These interactions are so important to Vegas. And if you take that away, you basically become a box with slot machines. And if you become that, then people don't need to come here for that. They can do that in every single state across the country, with the exception of Utah and Hawaii. The only two places you cannot do that. And secondly, you might as well just stay online. You know what I mean? You can play online. So if you want to create those experiences and those relationships, you need humans. That's what creates those experiences. There are ways to, maybe you can make automated processes in other areas, but the amount of people that come here because they like the dealers, because they like the bartenders, because they like the hosts that they deal with, or the slot managers, there's no way you can replicate that. And if you get rid of that, you take away a huge element of that experience. So, one of the things we've realized, especially now during the pandemic, is people just want to come and have a good time. They want to gamble, drink, and chit chat with their favorite team members and people. That's the basic of this business. Everything else is sort of the fluff of the nightclubs, the shows, the restaurants. If you look at all the casinos right now, they're not opening a bunch of nightclubs and restaurants, but they're still seeing their gaming winners there. It's because people just want to get out and gamble. And that's part of that experience. But I don't think you can, if you take away the human elements, you'll lose a lot of that business. I do believe that. So we are not doing a lot of automation. There are some processes that make sense. I think express check-in is probably one of those things. Like if you can do it, if you could in a seamless and easy way check in through your cell phone, which I know some I think Marriott's doing it on a national level. The key comes to your cell phone. I think that's pretty intelligent, but I wouldn't be getting rid of the people in the casino, the bartenders. I think that human interaction is just too important.
So you hit the nail right on the head. That's something that I firmly believe is that it's the people of Las Vegas that make up the city and keep the clientele coming back and the customers, and even building friendships along the way. And yeah. With that being said, I know you're a busy man, and I thank you for coming on. But I always ask two questions on the way out, to the same ones.
Sure.
The first one is, the year's 2030. What does the ecosystem of the Plaza Hotel look like?
Uh,
Long-term view.
30. Long-term view. So I think what I'd like to see is an integral functioning downtown where you have people living, working, playing, coming across the bridge, walking across the street, going to restaurants, going to shows, and plazas dominating the downtown with niche events like rodeos, pickleball, and other fun happenings that people come to because they can't do it anywhere else.
I love that. Last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
I always tell people it makes no sense that a guy from England's just living out here running a casino in downtown Las Vegas every day. But it means everything to me because it's where I met my wife. It's where I had my children. It's where the three most important things in my life are my wife, my kids, and the plaza, and my family in England, of course. But, those three things are all in Las Vegas. And so Las Vegas gave me that opportunity. It's been good to me. It's been an amazing place for me to grow up, basically. And I spent a third of my life here now, more than a third of my life. So to have that opportunity and for it to have been so good to me means everything.
Beautiful. Where can all of the listeners follow you, get involved with you and the Plaza Hotel?
Well, you can listen to our podcast on the corner of Main Street at Plaza Pod. Social media, I do Twitter and Instagram at Jonathan Jossel. And at Plaza Las Vegas is the handle for the hotel and everything we've got going on here.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It's really been an honor
We'll have to have a drink sometime, get some pizza or something. Come down here sometime.
Oh, please! I'm right around the corner. I have your contact information, so we'll definitely stay in touch. And
please do.
And we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for this.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. We'll catch you next time.